Welcome, everyone. We're so happy that you're joining us today for one of our virtual events here at Thoughtexchange. We're going to dive into helping students find their why. This is a really valuable conversation. I think it's not just for district leaders, but for parents or anyone with children in their lives. This is a really important topic that we're going to be covering today. So I'm excited to dive in. Before we get started, just want to introduce myself. My name is Angela Geringer. I am the Director of Corporate Solutions here at Thoughtexchange. I lead the corporate sales team to ensure that all of our corporate partners are utilizing our platform to the fullest extent to help them meet their needs, their goals, their initiatives, helping to democratize discussions throughout large organizations. So just a quick reminder that if you're joining us today, we'd love for you to join the conversation on social media. So if you're using LinkedIn or Twitter or any social media platform, these are the hashtags we'd love for you to use so you can join the conversation outside of this event. Hashtag TE virtual events or hashtag TEVE. I like to call this must-see TEVE, and that's definitely what today is. So please join the conversation, use these hashtags as you start to think of like really keen insights that you want to post on your social media platforms. Use these hashtags so we can join that conversation with you. So next up, I'd like to introduce one of our thought leaders here. Today, we have Phil Jarvis. He's the founding president of Transitions Canada. It's a not-for-profit national coalition for youth, education, business, government, and civic leaders to help K-12 students become career and life ready. Early in his career, Phil created a career exploration and planning system called Choices that was adopted by most secondary and post-secondary schools in Canada and by 13 US states. He has since led a number of national and international career projects that have reached tens of millions of students. The Real Game, a groundbreaking learning program disguised as a game, has been used in over 30,000 schools in the US and 100,000 classrooms worldwide over the last 2 decades. We're so excited to have you here, Phil. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Angela. Thank you.
And I'd also like to introduce you to our other co-presenter, our other thought leader, who is Ed Hidalgo. He's the Chief Innovation and Engagement Officer for the Cajon Valley Union School District. His focus is the design and implementation of research-based and integrated model of career development for every child in every grade across the 27-school, 17,000 student district to prepare every child for the world of work. Prior to his current role, Ed was the director of the World of Work initiative at the University of San Diego Institute for Entrepreneurship and Education, where he worked with researchers to design the theory of change and the theory of action for the World of Work initiative. Thank you, Ed, for joining us today.
My pleasure, Angela. Thank you.
We're really excited to have both of you here. You know, I think, like I said, this is an important topic, not for just district leaders, but also for parents. But really, as citizens of the world, as we prepare the next generation for work, I think this affects all of us, whether you have children or not. And so I'm excited really to start there and really focus on why this is such an important topic.
Look, I'd be happy to jump in. And very grateful to be here, and thank you everyone for being on this call. I hope you're going to find it provocative and powerful. First of all, I'd like to just pave the way a little bit for a conversation, if I may, and say that, as Angela mentioned, I've been around for a while, but I used to think early on in my career that my goal was getting good information to career counselors so they could help students make choices. A few years ago, I realized that no matter how good the tools or how good the information, there'll never be enough counselors to provide the substantial support all students need. The current ratio of counselors to students nationally in the US is 1 counselor to every 464 students. Where still most counselors can only focus on career counseling after they've dealt with the personal, social, and academic counseling challenges of their students. And as you know, there are plenty, and mental health challenges as well. But helping students prepare for successful lives beyond school really needs to be, in my opinion, the core mission of public education and everyone's job. And why do I say that? Well, because we're burying the next generation of young people in debt while forfeiting their talent. You can't put it any other way. U.S. student loan debt has now reached 1.5 trillion, as Angela mentioned. That's bigger than the debt on every credit card of every American citizen in the country. Only mortgage debt is bigger than that. So students are carrying a huge debt burden. But 6 out of 10 students who start a 2 or 4 year public or private college program will not have a degree after 6 years. This is from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center this year, 2019. The U.S. has the highest post-secondary dropout rate of any advanced country. That's not acceptable. So almost 2/3 of the young people carrying student loan debt have no degree or credential to show for their debt. Worse, they've lost precious years and are no closer to discovering, in many cases, good career pathways and employers who really need their unique skills and strengths. They got the debt, but they didn't get the sense of direction and purpose, the social and emotional skills, the financial management skills, the character or resilience, grit to graduate and get launched in a career that assures them a good financial return on their investment. What a terrible disservice we do to young people, insisting that whether they have career goals that are clear and excite them or not, they really have to go straight to college from high school if they want to have a chance at a good life. Well, that's just not true. They definitely will need some credential beyond high school, but college is but one of many possible learning pathways to career success. And college can happen at any point or multiple points during a career. 20% of students in Switzerland, for example, go directly from secondary school to university. That's 1 in 5 go to university. The other 4 of 5 go into their choice of one of 260 plus paid apprenticeship program pathways starting in grade 10. They graduate with a good job in a company they know and like. They graduate high school with a good company they know and like, with zero debt and positive savings in their account. Plus, their pathway to college remains open to them anytime they want to do that. Now, our economy is at the lowest level of unemployment in decades, 3.6% today. But youth unemployment, on the other hand, is at 9%, and youth underemployment is at close to 40%. Youth unemployment and underemployment combined in Switzerland is 2%. So a lot of graduates, let alone dropouts, are in low-paying, low security, low or no benefits jobs unrelated to their interests, skills, and studies. Many are demoralized, even depressed, trying to imagine how they'll pay off their loans, get out of their parents' basements, and begin a happy, fulfilling, independent adult life. These youth that we're talking about aren't the only victims. The prosperity of their families and their communities suffers as well. They can't buy cars or homes, build families, get actively engaged in their communities. Employers don't get the full benefit of their potential contribution. The human and economic cost of having so many young people failing to launch from school to good middle-class careers is staggering, and we all pay. So how must education change? School curriculum, let's face it, is really about preparing students for the next level of education. Grade 1 prepares kids for grade 2, grade 6 for grade 7. All of the grades put together prepare students for college, in theory. The assumption seems to be that when their heads are full enough of arbitrary, age-based, prescribed curriculum, they often don't understand why they need, they'll be ready to take on adult life. The sad reality is most aren't fully prepared. Student engagement plummets from about 80% in kindergarten and the early primary years to 40% or less in high school. Why? Because students seldom get an answer that satisfies them to the question that's constantly asked, why do I need to learn this? It's no wonder that employee engagement among adults across the country is about 33%. They're socially and emotionally engaged with their job. They love it. They're right into it. Disengagement is at 51%. The majority aren't fully engaged in their work. And active disengagement, or sabotage, really bad talking your employer, is at 16%. Clearly, and those are all statistics from Gallup from this year, clearly most of today's adults were not career ready when they entered the world of work. Neuroscience tells us, this is coming back to education, neuroscience tells us that when young people and their brains are stressed, tired, hungry, afraid, disengaged, or bored, they simply cannot learn. If they do, it doesn't stay in their heads for long. Helping students discover their unique strengths, find their why, and learn what they need to learn to prepare for the life they want should be job one for all educators, not just guidance counselors, supported by parents and the entire community. Every student has the potential to be a prodigy in something, even those considered learning challenged or behaviorally incorrigible. We just have to provide the understanding, acceptance, support, encouragement, and yes, love students need to find their something, their purpose, their why. Student engagement and achievement definitely increase when students are exposed to adults in jobs where they deal with issues students care about or who are in careers they find intriguing. When students begin to have a vision of possible futures that excite them, anything becomes possible. Engagement skyrockets. Their young plastic brains grow by leaps and bounds. Behavior problems diminish. Teacher satisfaction escalates, as does parental engagement. Now I ask you, why would we not want to transform education to benefit all students and society in general? Helping students find their why can begin in kindergarten or even earlier. You don't believe me? Listen to my friend Ed Hidalgo, coming up right away.
Thank you, Phil. That was so inspiring, and I think really surprising. A lot of those statistics, I think people know that, but that I don't think we really recognize the true impact of all of the issues that you've surfaced. And so I'm really excited, Ed, for you to dive in and let us know where we go from here.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure. And thank you, Phil, for setting the stage with those important stats. It's the reality of the world of work. And I spent 20 years before moving into this space hiring talent for major corporations. I've hired from all around the globe, and I've seen those disengaged workers in the companies that I worked for. And it was that work that really prompted me to get into the space that I'm in now. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit about the World of Work initiative. And if it's okay, Angela, I'll share my slides.
Please. Oh my gosh, we're really excited to see them.
Okay, so let's go ahead and share. And hopefully just about 10 minutes I'm going to give you, and it's hard to do it in a short period of time, folks, but I hope you'll stick with me as I share with you just a little bit about the World of Work initiative, this work around developing talent, every child, every grade, and every year. And so let's go for it. Let's jump in. I want to start with some big news from yesterday. We just received a grant of $1.2 million to support our work, which we're so excited about, from a major student loan organization here in the United States called American Student Assistance. They're supporting the advancement of our work after a year-long review of our efforts, and we're going to be able to support other districts right here in our region deploying the world of work, starting in primary grades all the way through 12th grade. So look us up, follow Twitter, and you'll get to learn more about that. But to understand really our district, which is the highest poverty school district of all 43 in San Diego County, with more than 850 teachers, 27 schools, and 17,000 students. We have the second highest number of Syrian and Iraqi refugees in the nation, more than 50 languages spoken. It's an incredibly diverse population. And this is our talent. This is talent that we need to develop to prepare our students for the world of work and the work of employers, and to help each child find their hoped for possible self. And you see in our district, over the last 4 years, our governing board has driven a vision for the work that we do here. So as you think about what we do with testing and how we measure students, our vision is really about developing happy kids, back to some of Phil's comments and research and data, happy kids living in healthy relationships on a path to gainful employment. Not a path to college, a path to gainful employment, a path to their future possible selves. And that's the opportunity that we need to provide for them, both academic and exposure to the real world of work. So it's these 5 trustees, this board, our board is on board. They believe in this work, they have funded this work. Our nation's schools were started by a committee of 10 college presidents back in 1883, and we often make the joke that our vision, our mission, and our preparation for our students is starting with this committee of 5, these 5 trustees. You have to have your board, your governing board, aligned to the vision, or the work will not happen. And their vision for us really aligns to the vision of our community, whether it's our chief of police, our mayor, our city manager, that we all work together to make Cajon Valley a city that's just east of San Diego, downtown, 15 miles, but to make Cajon Valley the best place to live, work, play, and raise a family. That's the work that we're doing here. And that's why we need to develop the talent of each individual child in order to be ready for this world of work and to make this the best place to live, work, play, and raise a family. In order to do that, we know that we need to bridge this gap between education and the world of work. We need to come together, and it's really the school's modern curriculum for our students, a curriculum that would prepare every child and develop those non-cognitive skills, so important, as well as the cognitive skills, that every child in our district has access to computer science through code.org. Every child is developing their TED Talks through the TED Ed curriculum in our classrooms. We host a TED conference every April in our school district. Every child is getting access to social emotional learning and well-being. We use Sanford Harmony for that work, but that 4th pillar was the world of work. It didn't exist. We couldn't buy it off the shelf. How would we do this for every child, every grade, and every year? And that's when we set out to develop a theory of change around this work. What needed to change? What were the problems? What were the gaps? And I hope this is important for the listeners, for the guests to understand that we went deep to understand the issues, many of the things that Phil was mentioning. But we do believe there's a lack of understanding about the evolving world of work. And if we think about it, Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix, and they thought that was a bad idea. How many of you still have a Blockbuster card in your back pocket or in your handbag? This lack of understanding from business, parents, and others about the changing world of work. We also know there's an underutilized body of knowledge on pre-K career development in our schools. As I speak with schools and teachers, it's amazing how few teachers really understand core career development frameworks like Holland RIASEC theory, which we'll talk about later. And then this last piece, there's a true need for systemic career development implementation with our schools. 464 counselors to 1 student, and that's been a big number for many years. It's impossible. Students are not getting exposure to the world of work. They're not getting career-related learning in their classrooms, and that must change. So this was our theory of change. Very quickly, we jumped to understanding the theory and the research. Maybe if you take a screen grab of this, I'm not going to go through all of it, but I want you to know that our work is grounded in career theory, social cognitive, self-efficacy belief, the work of Douglas Super, Godfredson, the concepts of foreclosure, very, very grounded in John Holland's RIASEC framework, and some of the postmodern theories, Mark Savickas, life design, and David Bluestein, the psychology of working. I hope you'll take a screenshot and a photo of this slide and maybe do some research for yourselves. But we ground in career theory to make it applicable in the classroom, to deploy it in the classroom, and that's what's happening. At the same time, there's a lot of great press that's coming out about starting this work in the early years. Some great work out of Canada from Mildred Cahill and Edith Fury. Also some great work happening across the pond from education and employers, drawing the future. Really some outstanding work happening, driving this concept of engagement, driving the exploration, and the importance of students learning about the world of work in the early years. At the end of the day, this theory of action for us, we know that this work must be linked to the vision, not just an add-on program, that faculty need to connect this world of school to the world of work, and that it must be culturally relevant. We must offer a variety of different experiences, use technology, and ensure that parents are participants in the process. And for us, it's a 2-gen strategy. So if you take nothing else away from today, I want you to think about this important statement here, that career development is a human process. For too many decades, we've been throwing a technology solution at career development, a career exploration. It doesn't work. Any assessment, no matter how good, is only as good as its interpretation, and it must start with a human. A teacher has 180 days to develop a relationship with a child. They are best positioned to help each child discover their future possible selves, to be happy and healthy relationships, and to see themselves on a path to gainful employment. The way that we do it is with a structure that we call the mission of me. And there's 3 core pillars: the concept of self-awareness, that every child should be able to explore their unique strengths, interests, and values, that they would get exposure to both academic and career opportunities. We call that the journey. And that every child would be able to tell their story, which connects back directly to Mark Savickas' work. Every child should be able to tell their story, their unique story, based on their own strengths, interests, and values, and based on the exposure they've had to both academic and career opportunities. Again, it's the mission of me, and it's a 3-core process. I'm just going to share that we ground in Holland in the RIASEC framework. Why? Because it's the most researched of all vocational typologies. It has decades of meta-research associated with it, and we know that interests have the highest correlation to career success, performance, and income of any of the personality measures. So that's why we ground with Holland. How do we actually do this work? There are 4 levels of integration that are happening in our classrooms. Every child, every grade, every year has the opportunity to explore a career, to simulate a career, to have a hands-on experience, to try it on. We've created all of the simulations through our program, through our initiative. Every child has an opportunity to meet a pro, to make the connections to professionals in the industry, ideally someone who looks like them. And every child has the opportunity to just demonstrate their learning. We call it a level 4, and that's practice. So at the end of the day, it's this idea of exposure, that every child would hear about a career, tinker with the career, meet someone who does it, and then practice. And so when we deploy this work, you see the classrooms start to transform. They look very different than you've never seen the RIASEC up in classroom walls before. But students are starting to use the RIASEC as a thinking process, as a thinking model, where they can now see that Wilbur from Charlotte's Web is enterprising because he negotiated with the farmer to save the egg sack in order to save Charlotte. Students are making these natural connections, and then we see that it's a metacognitive skill that we're developing in students through the Holland framework, and teachers are the ones who are unpacking it in the classroom. So our classrooms are transforming. We provided the design and the digital frameworks to be able to pull the resources for the classrooms. We've created the physical resources. And then 2 more slides, more than 61,000 student views of live industry chats in 15 months, connected to professionals. We've had more than 8,000 RIASEC assessments taken using a super strong, valid, reliable, and empirically based. Hopefully you know why that's important. Half of that 8,000 number, parents. Parents have been coming and learning the same framework starting in kindergarten. We have more than 1,000 teachers that have been trained. These parent experiences, they're coming after school now to learn about their own interest themes so they can understand their children's interest themes. We have 10 wonderful other partners in the districts and more to come. And at the end of the day, we couldn't do it without our wonderful network. But using Nepris, hopefully you've heard about Nepris, a great social media platform that's connecting our kiddos to professionals in the classrooms. We're using the Vita Navis tool, a valid and reliable, empirically based RIASEC themed assessment. And then everything else that you've seen this morning are elements that we've created with our teachers here in Cajon Valley. It's our own IP. We're the ones who have created it, and we want to make it accessible so every child, every grade, every year knows there's the future possible selves for each and one of them.
So powerful. Ed, I think that this work that you and Phil are taking on is just so important for our kids and for our future generations. And I'm so glad to see such success. And really the depth of it is just incredible. I'm glad to see that we've had so much success. What I'd love to do right now is really open this up for questions, for feedback to our attendees, because I'm sure all of the things that you've said have, and we've seen the chat kind of going. So I know that there's a lot of a good feedback here. So what I'd like to do now is share my screen so that you guys can hop into the exchange. When we do that, you're gonna see Amelia has just posted the exchange in the link. So let me share my screen with you. And then you'll see the QR code. That's another way for you to join us in this exchange. In this QR code, you'll see that all you have to do is take your mobile device, zoom in, you'll see a pop down that will lead you, if you click on it, it'll lead you right into the exchange where we can ask some questions of Phil and Ed about this important work that they're doing. Remember that you just have to press continue. You don't have to log on if you don't want to in order to join it. The question in today's exchange is, what thoughts or questions do you have for Ed and Phil? So once you get in there, please share some thoughts, star some thoughts, and then discover what everyone's saying. And then once you're done with that exchange, we'll start the question and answer session with Phil and Ed. In order for you to participate in the exchange, I'm gonna need to be quiet. So we'll give you guys just a few minutes to interact with this question. We'll also dive into some of the questions and feedback that we've seen in the chat too. So I'll be quiet and give you a few minutes to do that. Okay, while we're finishing up, guys, I'm going to just show you an example of the ways that we're interacting with one another. This is a visualization, of course, of the thoughts that you're sharing, of the thoughts that you're rating, and we're seeing in real time the priorities of the feedback, questions, and thoughts that are coming in from those of you attending and participating in this exchange. You know, we really feel like when you're rating the thoughts, that's the secret sauce, that's the magic, that's where you're thinking critically and empathizing with the perspectives and thoughts of others. So even after you finish sharing, what I'd like to encourage you to do now is ensure that you're in there and that you're starring, and we'll give you just a few more minutes and then we're going to jump into these questions. Okay. I'm going to switch us over, Ed and Phil, to the top thoughts so we can see the priorities of the group, and we can start there. Okay, let's start with this first question, and I'm going to let you guys probably both chime in if you don't mind, to give your both unique perspectives on these. High school students that are confused about their future, what steps do you both recommend? Very late start trying to find their why. Any suggestions would be much appreciated.
How about I jump in there first and Ed, pick me up. The pressure that's on young people, especially high school kids, is that they're constantly asked, what are you going to be when? Mm-hmm. What is your destination? And, you know, most of the people asking the question didn't know the answer for themselves at that age. So it's the wrong question. It really has to be, what do you really care about? What are the issues out there in the real world, in your community, where you think you might be able to make a difference? What could you do now to start making a difference? How can you connect with people in the community? And parents can be a big help in this because we're 6 degrees away from everybody in the world, apparently, by helping connect their children to people in the community who are doing something like or very close to what the kid is saying they're really interested in. That's an issue, whether it's pollution or injustice or inequality or plastics in the ocean or whatever the issue is. There are issues that adolescents care deeply about. And once you connect with those issues, you've got them, and you can have an amazing conversation. Parents know their kids, siblings know their kids, teachers know their students pretty well. So if you focus on that student's dreams, concerns, aspirations, hopes, and make that the center of the conversation, as opposed to what will you be when.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's one none of us could ever answer, and some of us still can't answer because we all see exciting things in our future, hopefully, and we're dreaming of getting there. So shift the question, and anybody can get involved with a young person if they get into what they're concerned about and where they want to make a difference in the world. And then you can start translating that to paid, unpaid work, career possibilities, training programs, and everything else.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Phil. I mean, I think for a parent, as a parent, one of the things is that we see this very insurmountable, what we feel like is an insurmountable push up a hill. And it's really comes down, you've really done a great job of just boiling it down to like, how do we just change our language? How do we ask a question where we say to our child or our student, what do you care most about? And what can you start doing today that will make a difference to that end? I think that language is so important for us to have. So I appreciate that. Ed, I'm curious to know what your take is on this question.
Children are giving us clues to their strengths, interests, and values from a very early age. I wish we had more time to kind of dig into that a little bit further. We need to help every child discover their unique strengths, interests, and workplace values. And one of the reasons I tie back to that is through Gallup's research, students are 30 times more likely to be engaged in school if two elements are present. Number one, they have a teacher that gets them excited about their future. And number two, that they know that the school is committed to developing the strengths of each individual child. Kids are giving us clues to their talents, their natural strengths, and their interests, again, all the time. We don't recognize them. We haven't created a common language to help students make a connection between who they are and who they want to become. When you ask students, tell me something that people tell you that you do really well. In my experience, students say, no one's ever asked me that question before. So we're really busy trying to take content from curriculum and put it in their brains, but we don't stop to have conversations. And that's why we talk about happy, healthy, on a path. That when we create this common language in our schools, and this is already happening in the early grades, I wish I could share videos with you all today. Students start naturally making these connections. And our teachers are saying, this is the first year that when I ask students about what are you thinking about for your future in 5th grade, 4th grade, I didn't get athlete, musician, superstar. They actually were saying things like, you might laugh, but hunter trapper actually came up. A student wants to be a hunter and a trapper. It's on the ONET. They want to be an accountant. They want to be a geographer. They want to be an Imagineer at Disney. So this teacher was just amazed that the students were making these natural connections, but that's because we're starting to use this common language of Holland and strengths and values in the classroom.
That's really lovely, Ed. Thank you. I'd like to ask, we don't have a ton of time, but I'd like to dive into at least 2 or 3 more, guys. You talked a little bit about how you're currently having these conversations and reaching out to students. I think that common language, Ed, that you talked about was so vitally important. I'm curious to know, beyond Cajon Valley, can you give us some examples outside of your district where you're having some success?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a great district out of Illinois called Indian Prairie. And I've been out there 3 times this year, and I saw one of the questions, how do you start with the adults? How you start with the adults, especially in education, is you start to put the mask on them first. It's kind of like the airline analogy. If we lose cabin pressure, a small mask will fall from the ceiling. Please apply it to yourself first before you apply it to others. When I started with this district, meeting with 900 teachers, I took them through strengths, interests, and values first. They'd never had it before. Many of the teachers are raising their hands saying, no one's ever sat down and talked to me about my own career development. They don't know what their strengths are. They've never had exposure to Holland. And then you unpack a values card sort with the teachers, and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm either in this for the right reasons or maybe I'm not. So Indian Prairie always asks me, number 1, Ed, please spend the morning with the why. Everything that Phil talked about in the opening, start with the why, help my teachers understand what's happening and changing in the world of work. With my HR and staffing background, perfect. Number 2, let's put the mask on the adults, help them discover their strengths, interests, and values, and we've designed the protocols to do that and blend all 3. You can't just be a strengths-based district. It's not sufficient. As soon as you help an adult or a child discover their strengths, then they ask you, where can I use these? And that's why interest has to be integrated into that process. And then thirdly, values. So start with the adults, put the mask on them first, then we can start putting the mask on the children. And it's happening in Indian Prairie in second, third, fourth, and fifth grades already. In less than a year, they're integrating it into their classrooms. Not beginning of the day, end of the day, homeroom. It's becoming integrated into their core curriculum.
That's great, Ed. Thank you so much. Phil, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and put the mask on the adults first. That would include parents as well. So when you can get, for one thing, the kids are going to start going home with some very interesting questions and discussion about what their own parents do and how they like it and how it lines up with their interests and so on. But a lot of parents never had an opportunity. They fell into what they're doing, or it was serendipity, good, bad luck, whatever, that got them where they are. And it certainly wasn't a systematic process of exploring all the alternatives and lining those up with interests and values and so on. So to the extent that you can engage the parents early on, teachers, the administrators, the parents as well, community leaders, you're going to get everybody on board quite quickly, all speaking the same language, and that's critical.
This is really helpful. I feel like a lot of these questions are similar in nature and talking about how do you engage, how do you start early, how do you get parents and teachers involved. I'd like to dive into this question. How do you combat the reality of decreased income without a university degree? Is that why you think we've gotten to a place of like you have to go to college, that's the only path? Can we kind of dive into that a little bit and maybe try to break some of those myths or preconceptions down?
Well, I'll take a run at that, Ed. First of all, nearly 50% of the people with associate degrees, apprenticeship, industry certification programs, and so on, are making as much as BAs, as bachelor's degrees. So it's a myth that the only way to get money is to go to college. And those people, by the way, in many cases are not carrying any debt or much less debt than the people who hung in for 4 years, then decided they had to go on to a master's and probably a PhD because they weren't sure which way to land and go, when they got out of the system. So I think it's absolutely critical that, and you could, a lot of good employers now who really value their employees and their strengths are now providing support for academic upgrading and for university programs, college programs, certification programs that will help them, help the employees become better employees and find a good career pathway within the organization. So, money being the big carrot hasn't got us very far, and it's got an awful lot of people in an awful lot of debt with no clear idea where happiness is. So I think we've just got to turn that on its end and say, number one, it's not true. It's not the only way to get to good paying middle class jobs. There are actually shorter ways, quicker ways, and far less expensive ways to get there.
That's lovely. Thanks so much, Ed. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. I think that is an important initiative, is to turn that myth on its head. And so I'm curious to know what your take is on that.
Well, we stigmatize labor. That's exactly what our local businesses have told us. When I presented this to the board while I was at University of San Diego, I had to meet with the mayor and city manager and local business, and they're like, "You stigmatize labor. It's going to take a year and a half." We had a hotel that was trying to be built here and for Comic-Con, and it was a year and a half late because we couldn't find people in the trades that want to do this work. We've completely stigmatized labor. Our community colleges are graduating students out, if they're graduating them out, with 2 year associates that aren't leading into pathways that are priority sectors. So everyone's not talking. We're really bad at the handoffs. We know there's 30 million good jobs in the United States that make an average $55,000 a year that don't require a 4-year degree. You can go to the Georgetown Center on Education and Workforce and look at the statistics. So we have to be aligned to our priority sectors. Our workforce boards need to be doing this work. The information needs to be communicated down into our districts, and CTE programs need to be flexible. They need to adjust so that we're providing, credentialing in areas that are actually in demand, not just cosmetology because everyone wants to go into it. Is there really demand for that? And how do we shift? We're not nimble enough to make these shifts, but huge demands right now. If my children said to me, I want to be an electrician or an elevator repair, I would say, yes, thank you. If your interests, strengths, and values align to that career, because you may not want to walk up into the rafters, you may not want to dig holes, you may not want to get sweaty and dirty all day. If your values don't align, that may not be the right gig for you. So let's help understand you first, and then let's explore what's possible. And then we'll determine, should it be 4-year, 2-year trade? Maybe it's a gap year. Maybe it's volunteer a year. There should be lots of different options for kiddos. It's too expensive, and there's no longer a yellow brick road to a career. It's going to be way more complicated.
Well, this has been so valuable. I can't even begin to thank you enough. I think you can see from the thoughts how much value everyone has found in this. I think that there's enough for us to dive into that we could do at least another one of these, if not many more. I also would encourage us to have a conversation too about including you guys on some of our in-person events, where we bring a bunch of district leaders or corporate leaders together, where we can talk about bridging this gap between the workforce and education. So I'm excited to really see where we can continue this conversation. Before we break today, Ed, Phil, would you guys like to add any last words?
You can just see that this is not just a job for either Ed or for me. I mean, this is a crusade, and we believe we owe it to all young people in America and all not so young people in America to find ways to a better future for themselves. And we've just got to drop the myths and get on with finding out about kids' strengths, their aspirations, their dreams, what they care about, and then help them learn what they need to learn, not what a series of educators has determined they need to learn to be turned loose on society. Yes, all of those things are important, but once kids see their dreams, they see the relevance of education much more clearly and dive in.
Thank you, Phil. I just want to say I'm so proud of our teachers and our admins and our community, really our teachers who have really, they have a lot, right? They have really tough jobs, and they have seen the value of this. We have 3 coaches who have been coaching on this work. I suggest anyone who's interested in their questions that they didn't get answered, go to Twitter, ask the questions. I know some of our coaches are online watching this thought exchange, but I'm just so proud of what the teachers, I can't believe the work that I've seen in this district is so amazing. The things that we're seeing kids do that they're excited about. We're not forcing them to make career decisions or choose a job. We're giving them the tools to be able to see a possible self, a hoped for possible self. And when their parents come in, they see this, they're asking us, how can I learn more about this? I've never had this. We're bringing families together to do this work together. And so send us your questions. We'll be happy to answer them. However we can get access to you, let us know. I understand the questions are really good. I saw so many of them. I tried to answer some, but I can't say enough about our teachers and the work that they've been doing to integrate this work. They're my heroes. They're my superheroes. They're going to change the lives for kids.
Thank you so much, Ed and Phil, for joining us today. I feel proud to know you. I feel proud to have you here to explain all of this to us. I know it's been so valuable. I appreciate the teachers that you work with, the parents that are involved in this, the students for showing up every day. I just think you're right, this is a crusade, and I appreciate you guys fighting this good fight. I would like to let everybody know we will be sending out a recording of this. We'll be sending out the Thought Exchange report as well. We might even have you, Ed and Phil, maybe give some additional answers to some of those questions when we send out that follow-up email. I think that would be really valuable. Great. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to further this conversation with them, like they said, get in touch with them. If you're not sure how to get in touch with them, I'm happy to put you in touch with them. If you'd like to talk more about Thought Exchange, please get in touch with me. And stick around. Amelia just posted a link in the chat. Stick around to chat with our engagement coaches after this to run your own exchanges and brainstorm some more ideas. So thanks so much, everyone. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.